Welcome back to Guns America Digest. This is an offshoot of Guns America Digest that I am doing as an adjunct to Grid Down Prepping. So the articles for this series will be at griddownmag.com, and the sign up for it, you can subscribe at gunsamerica.com/digest. There will be articles on these videos that will have a lot to them that I will not remember to include in the video. Sometimes I just cut it out by mistake even. So you should check out the articles. I'm going down a new road, and I'm probably going to start a new YouTube channel called South Florida Garden Farming. And what a garden farm is, it's something that is meant to feed more than just your family. And it's more than just a curiosity. A garden is something that you're not really relying on to feed yourself even. It's more of a hobby, my garden. But garden farming is something that you are growing to feed yourself long term through the months that you cannot grow. And during those times that you can also sell some of your, or trade some of the things that you grow to other people for things that you need. It is referred to as garden farming. And unfortunately, there is a dearth of material for how to do that in South Florida at all. I will be talking a lot about a specific author called David the Good on Amazon books. And I've read all of his stuff. He's excellent. He has some general topics like composting and grafting and rooting, things like that. He's not terribly specific in his advice, but he does give you a starting point from which to jump off from. And that is what I'm going to attempt to do. I'm going to attempt to take what he's given me, because I had lost hope in gardening at all in South Florida, and I'm going to take it into more of a large production kind of perspective. Now today, and this is my first topic for the channel, there will be much more general topics than this, but I personally have been curious as to the difference between soil and hydroponics. Okay, there's a lot of misinformation with hydroponics out there. Aquaculture, where you use fish, and people who swear by this system, but they don't tell you how it compares to other systems, and they don't show you that 6 months down the road all their fish died and all their plants died, because it's an extremely risky form of gardening and farming. Hydroponics in general, not so much, especially something that's called deep water culture, or DWC. So DWC I've tried. You basically have a reservoir with water that you're going to put your fertilizer into that water. Either you use soluble powders or you will use liquid fertilizer. I'm going to be using soluble powders. And you put an aerator, like a fish tank aerator, below your root pot. And the roots grow down into the aerator, and it keeps it nice and fresh. You do have to change the water. It's kind of a pain in the neck, and the water can get low once the plants get big. But I found it to be pretty robust. And for things that are sketchy in soil in South Florida, that bring nematodes like an okra, that bring leaf rot like a tomato, I'm going to try some of that stuff. So the stuff that I can do in pots. In pots, I'm going to do them in bags, in raised gardening bags, and I'm going to do them in root pots with clay beads. And I'm going to break out all of the steps of this separately for each one. Now, as you can see, I have some plants here. These are some 2-inch blocks that I'm growing some. This is long gone and lychee. I went to a Chinese market and got a bunch of stuff that you can't find, and I'm growing it. Those are trees that take many, many years to bear. But here we have tomatoes and eggplants. And the two systems that I'm using are Rockwool for the hydroponics and for the seedlings, and just regular soil blocks for the dirt seedlings. Now I have a different tool that I'll explain later in the video that I got. I had to buy on eBay because they don't have the small block. You can start in those 2-inch blocks. That's what these guys are. These are all 2-inch blocks that I started these tree seeds in. I didn't feel like doing that because I didn't feel like making all these big blocks, and I didn't have enough dirt at the time to do it. So I said, you know what? I have my little seed blocker, and the 2-inch blocks actually come with an insert when you make your 2-inch blocks that these guys fit into. So that will be my next step now that these are sprouted. But I will first show you, I did film how I got here with both of these, and I will be doing both of these hopefully to maturity, and hopefully till I succeed or fail and actually get some stuff. Now in South Florida, this is when you should be doing your seedlings. August, believe it or not. You cannot do your seedlings in March in South Florida because during the bearing months of your stuff, you will be in the most wretched heat like we're experiencing now. But if you're just doing your seedlings and you're potting them up in shade and just letting them take and start to get their vegetative growth growing, that's where you can succeed. And you can even have 2 harvest seasons, because after these guys mature, if they're not ever bearing, then you can just trash them obviously and start over again. As they start to bear, you do your another batch of seedlings, and you can get a second crop that will come up in June, July. All right. So that's going to be your approach in South Florida. There are things that will bear year-round, like cassava, yucca, malanga. For that stuff, I will get to all of it, hopefully down the road. I already put some in because David the Good and his books inspired me to just get going about, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago. So I did. And my cassava is now 3 feet tall. And my malanga has these big elephant leaves. So I have, and my sugar cane is 4 feet tall. So I am doing that myself. I have specific concerns that I have to deal with because I have some very wet areas and I have some very hard areas, hard soil areas. But I'm going to get into the whole garden farming angle of small farm equipment. I'm going to go through all the implements that I use, that I've used in my past small farming exercise that I did 20 years ago. I'm taking my experience from 20 years ago and applying it to modern day times. For me, modern day, whatever. In Florida, the soil is very tricky. Thinking that you're going to put some compost in and bulk up the soil with organic matter, as soon as it rains really hard for a couple of weeks, you will be back to whatever you started with, because that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with rainstorms that dump. You see, I'm in a rainstorm now. That dump 3 or 4 inches of rain in an hour. Sometimes in 15 minutes you can get 3 inches of rain, and that wipes out your soil. Now, David, he's experimented with biochar, where you soak charcoal in fertilizer, and then you till it into your soil, and it holds that fertilizer there for you. Great. I may try it myself, but my perspective is to use the soil as if it were hydroponic media like Rockwool or clay beads, and you just add your liquid fertilizer to your water as you're watering, and it becomes basically a hydroponic system. Not the first guy to think that up, but it can be very confusing out there. A lot of people like David will not touch hydroponics at all. He will not touch liquid fertilizers. He will show you all kinds of tricks to do things very cheaply. He has this David's fetid swamp water stuff. Great idea. Korean gardeners apparently use it as well follow his YouTube channel at The Survival Gardener. I believe he's thesurvivalgardener.com is his blog. I will mention him many times in the course of this because I'm really just trying to add a larger scale approach to what he's doing and things that he's not interested in, like hydroponics, like flame weeding, things that he specifically in some of his books says, not interested. Okay, so that's where I'm going with this. I'll show you what I'm doing with these plants and we'll go from there. For the hydroponics, I'm using rock wool to start my seedlings, and the rock wool will go directly into the pebbles, which you'll see later. For water, I'm using the same water from the my RO system that I used for the plant seedlings, but I added a little bit of lemon juice to bring the pH down. It's at 5.8. I was measuring 5.5 earlier. 5.5 was my target. For some reason, in rock wool, plants do better in acidic water. I don't know why, but they do. And for the rock wool, you just soak it. Just soak it, let it sit for a while because it will soak the water up into it. Just let it sit for a while, and then you don't want it. You don't want to squeeze it out. You just want it to be soaked. So I'm going to let these sit a while and just to get the water inside of them, and then I'll drain off the excess. So now I am going to compare apples to apples as much as I possibly can. I am doing 6 rows of rock wool and 6 rows of soil. And as I said, the soil is also a crapshoot. This is not seedling mix. This is a combination of peat moss, sphagnum peat moss, and the very inexpensive Home Depot dirt that's called compost and cow manure, I believe is what it's called. So the way I do seeds, so I'm going to do 1 row each. So I'm going to do 5 plants in the rock wool, and I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 plants in the dirt. Okay, because it's a lot easier for me to put plants in dirt than it is for me to put plants into buckets. The way I do seeds is I usually use a toothpick, a wet toothpick for small seeds like this, and you wet the end of the toothpick, and then you just pick up the seed with the toothpick, and it works really good actually. I'm not a big fan of scattering seeds and then thinning plants because, for one thing, thinning plants is agony for me. All right, I hate throwing away plants. It drives me up the wall. So I try to just individually put seeds in one at a time. And this, even something small like tobacco seeds, I try to do that with. To me, it's just better for my personality of what I don't like to kill plants once I plant them. I like to see what they're going to do. So the variety that I'm doing right now, I'm going to do 6 different varieties. And I'm going to do some in the rock wool and some in the dirt. Okay, I don't like to call it soil because then you sound like all the other people who call it soil. And when you're working with dirt, you don't usually even have to re-wet the toothpick. It just kind of stays wet from being in the wet dirt. And for tomato seeds, you can cover them. They don't have to be covered. There's only a few seeds that need light to germinate, tobacco actually being one of them. There aren't a lot of seeds that need light. There's a lot of seeds that you can scatter and they will grow just fine, but I tend to like to do this one at a time. And with tomato seeds, I will just take the toothpick and at least mostly cover them over. And when I'm talking and doing this at the same time, I'm going to probably have many of them that have 2 or even 3 seeds in there. So I'm not going to talk throughout this whole thing. I'm not going to bore you guys with all the stuff that I'm going to plant. Row 1 is going to be Florida market eggplant from a random eBay seller, okay? And that is one of the things that I wanted to explain to you is that I am a complete seed slut. I have no loyalty to any particular entity for buying seeds, and I buy way more seeds than I could plant in the copious free time that I have, and I don't like to waste them either, even though I'm going to have a lot more than I will ever use. This is Florida market eggplant. All right, it's a 1/4 ounce of seeds. I will try to figure out where I got this for the article that goes along with these videos, as I've explained. The other seeds that I'm going to do are, I'm going to do one seed rack burpee. I'm going to do this San Marzano, looks like a Roma kind of tomato, all right, like a paste tomato. That's the burpee that I'm going to do. I'm going to use a company called True Love. True Love has a lot of ethnic seeds, okay? This is from their African collection. This is a white garden eggplant, okay? And African eggplant. I'm trying to do things that I think will grow in a hot climate because I'm planting these in July to start as seedlings. They will probably go into the ground in August or September. I am doing a True Love Seeds Plata de Haiti tomato, okay? And it sounds Spanish even though the people in Haiti speak French. So I don't know what the deal is with that, but this is again one of their ethnic seeds from a very hot location called Haiti. All right, I'm hoping it will grow here in the summer. In the winter, I'm sure it will. This is a Japanese black truffle tomato from For the Love of Seeds, which is an Etsy seller. Okay, a very good Etsy seller. And the last one is from Southern Exposure Seed Exchange. Now, Southern Exposure is, I believe they are reselling a lot of seeds. They're not saving all their own seed. They do not just have Southern varieties. This one is just an eggplant I'm trying. It's called Ping Tong Long. Ping Tong Long. Okay, sounds like it's Malaysia or something like that. So I'm going to do 1 row each of those, and we'll see how they germinate. So hopefully I'm going to get around to other stuff. You know, I hope to get to all of it as it goes. I'm hoping to track these plants through success or failure and I'll share it with you. You know, I'll share with you if I fail or if I succeed. That's unfortunately the problem with YouTubers, is they don't like to share their failures with you. So we'll see. We'll see if I actually get eggplants and tomatoes from these guys, which in my experience, I have not had good experience at all in South Florida. And as we do it, I'll be going over the stuff that David tells you to grow, that David turned me on to, and that I've now bought at the supermarket and I like them, as well as things he doesn't even mention. But get on his YouTube channel. Definitely subscribe to this new YouTube channel. I don't know that I'm always going to do articles for little side points, videos and things like this. It's going to be a tiny little YouTube channel, South Florida Farm Gardening. So my kid's choking over here, so I'm going to have to go. He's drinking rainwater. So I'll see you next time.